Man to Man.
Good to see you again.
Fireside discussions here. So I'm gonna stop counting episodes because I'm not gonna remember anything once we get further down the road.
I think we're on episode 27.
Yeah, 37, but it doesn't matter. We've been talking. So Dennis Lemire, Mike Makowski, Man to Man. We've been going through like this least manly discussion. I think if we could have picked out topics that we were going to start the podcast with, like chopping wood, getting oil changes done, would have been like ways to start off man to man, right? Podcast, but we didn't. We decided to dive into love.
Yeah.
So it's just been interesting. It's been a fun conversation, but it's started to permeate the world, and we've had these discussions going outside of these podcasts that continue to revolve around this topic. So I don't think it's done yet. I don't think we're finished with it, but
it's good. It's crazy. I mean, just the other day, I was thinking, for the audience listening, Dennis and I have been talking about this thing called love for about 3 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
We've been consistent and kind of talking to each other about it. And I don't know about you, but have you ever noticed that whatever seems to be filling your mind, you find in your world?
Right.
It's
the white car syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Like you buy a white car and suddenly everyone's
got a white car. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just the truth. It's so interesting. But if you are constantly thinking about sickness, you'll always find sickness in the world. If you constantly think about pain, you're always going to see the pain of the world. If you're a joyful person, you're going to find the joy of the world,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just been so interesting because about 3 weeks ago, I was telling you, Dennis, I was like, man, everybody at Chick-fil-A is grumpy. They're just stupid. I was just getting overwhelmed with the fact of just crabby people. And then I literally began to dream about, I would wake up dreaming about Chick-fil-A and working the counter or going and putting the load away. It was just filling my thoughts, right? But then you interrupted it by saying, man, I got this song that I heard. And what was it? What was the words of that song?
The one who knows me best is the one who loves me most.
Right.
Is the one part of the song.
Yeah, and you introduced that to me and said, there's something about that I think we need to talk about. We need to talk about God's love and what is that, right? Mm-hmm. And ever since then, I'm finding love. I listen to the music in the bathroom at Chick-fil-A all the time, and what do I hear? That Huey Lewis song, It's the power of love. I'm like, what? I don't know if you ever heard that song, but it's pretty biblical in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Love's not a feeling. In fact, I got it on my phone just because the first actual words are, the power of love is a curious thing. Make a one man weep, make another man sing. Change the hawk to a little white dove, more than a feeling.
Right.
That's the power of love. What?
Exactly what we talked about last week.
Exactly.
Right? We were talking about, what is it? Is it a feeling? Is it a choice? Is it some combo of the both?
Right.
Right? And here Huey Lewis, 30 years ago, gave us the answer.
And so, but what caught me about that is that the fact of that, the Bible talks about in Romans 12:2, it said that, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And this is an example of renewing your mind. It's an example of what are you constantly thinking about? Because the world around us is constantly communicating whatever we are thinking about. It's going to communicate back to us.
Right.
And God is constantly communicating to us what we're thinking about. So I would rather choose God's word to be thinking about more often so I can see God throughout our world than having all the crap that's going on constantly in my mind, and then that's when I'm going to get fed, and that's what I'm going to see. And so it's exactly what renewing your mind is all about. Why? Because the more I renew my mind with God's word, the more I'm going to see God in my life. The more I'm going to see him around my life. The more that I'm thinking on that aspect, the more I'm going to find in our world. You'll find whatever you want to find.
Right. So, what... When you say renewing your mind, right? That's like one of these terms to me that, is just very it's very abstract to me. Like I don't quite understand what is it. What does that mean? Like what literally does that mean?
It literally means to change the way you think.
But so I'm told, right, that that's not possible, right? And I shouldn't say not me. Like no one personally told me this, right? But the world or our society, right, or people around me are constantly saying that's not like, well, you don't have a choice in what you think or what you feel or
Really?
or what you are, right? Like it's you're just born that way. You can't choose that. It's not a choice. So if what you're saying is like that's not fact. Like that's just not biblically solid and maybe not functionally solid if we look at historically or in practice how it actually works.
Right. I mean, you choose to set your alarm.
Right.
You don't accidentally do that. It's
Sometimes.
not when you choose to wake up,
Yeah.
you choose to brush your teeth. You don't have to brush your teeth. How do you know it's a choice? Because you can choose not to.
Right. So you can choose not to think about these things.
Oh, yeah.
So because you can choose not to, then it's a choice. It's not something that's put on you.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you can do that in the coming year. I mean, I don't know if this podcast will go up before the end of the year. No, because it's like 2 days from now. But many times people make a choice to get fit,
Right.
and they make a choice to eat differently, and they make a choice. Your life is filled with choices, and how do you know that? Is because
So we're doing it all the time.
you're doing it all the time.
Right.
You choose to drive your car. You choose to pay attention to the road. So your life is filled with choices. Otherwise we'd be robots and.
Well, nobody would ever change. Nothing would ever change.
No.
You would be what you are, right? Like, so 2 years ago, right? This is my backstory a little bit, right? 2 years ago, we sat in, which is amazing. It's almost been 2 years, right? We sat in your backyard, and I had a choice. Like I literally had a choice right in front of me. Like, what direction do I want to go with the way that my life was put in front of me, right? I mean, there are some things that I didn't have a choice about that happened, but how I was going to respond to those, I really had two distinct choices.
Yeah.
And
what I would venture to say is that a lot of the choices that you had set in front of you didn't want to make.
no, like literally the harder choice was a lot of times the better. People often like, how do you do that? I don't know. Like I do it because I have to, not because I want to most of the time, because it is the harder choice. The easier choice would have been to go the other direction and blow it all off and say, screw it, I'm out.
Because what did
This is too hard, I can't do it.
What would that easier choice align with in your heart?
It would have aligned with the easy way out, effectively, the normal, right? This is what normally people do.
Right.
This is what I've been taught is the normal way to do it.
And what was that based off of? It was based off of hurt.
Yeah, hurt and pain and destruction.
And so to feed that, the easier choices would feed that. Because that's where you were at in your heart at that point in time.
And that's what I would have seen all around me.
Yeah.
And would have continued to be put in front of me.
And you're even encouraged to do.
Right. Being told, like, hey, this is what you should do.
By professionals.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know. You remember that. Yeah. Like Christian professionals.
Yes.
Really? I mean, that literally is Christian professionals saying, this is it. This is what you need to go down this path of destruction and hate and death and
follow those routes.
Because this is what everyone does. Right. And I just went, no, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And so what I started to see was different. Mm-hmm. And now this is the same kind of thing, it feels like, is we've been talking about love and trying to explore all of this, and it's constantly coming up. There's things that continue to be said. The issue that we talked about a little bit last week, is trying to define that, right? What does that mean in two different ways? So last week we talked a lot about what that means when it comes to like God's love for us,
Right.
which is important. And, and again, Mick might slap my hands because at some point, you have to embrace that.
Right.
You have to know
Trust
that before you move forward, right? Like,
well, you can move forward, but you're just not operating out of that.
yeah,
Right.
You move forward not successfully, I would say,
Right.
most of the time, right? But you have to know, you have to have God's love and the understanding of God's love and a good relationship with that before you can move forward, or you're not on solid ground. You're
No.
not operating out of a good base of where you're working out
Right.
of. But once you have that good base and once you understand what you're working out of, again, my question, which came up last week, is so then how do we apply that to, because we can't, the way that we interact with God and God interacts with us is not the same way we can interact with other people all the time,
Right.
because it's different, right? It's just
Well,
like,
we can, but yeah, but when
not
you
in the same, there are some things that are similar,
Right.
but not everything. I mean,
Oh, no.
God, like we talked about, like unconditional love between people is a lot harder
All right.
because none of us are God.
Right.
In the God-person relationship, one of them is God, so it's quite a bit easier to have
Right.
unconditional love.
Right.
So how do you, like, what do we do, and what is that definition? How does it change,
Right.
or how do we unpack it when it comes to other people?
Right. And that's and that's one of the things that we discovered from 1 John. 1 John 4:8 says just what you said a little bit ago. But anyone who does not love does not know God.
Right.
I mean, think about that statement. For God is love. We talked about that He is love. Everything He does comes from that characteristic, comes from that, because that's who He is. He can't operate away from that, right? And so 1 John 4:16 says, we know how much God...
But that's one second on that one. That's a pretty black and white statement.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I feel like that's one of those statements where you read that, I mean, like we almost did, right? And then you can kind of fly past it. But that means that really packs a lot of weight.
Oh.
If you don't have... Read it again.
But anyone who does not love does not know God.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's absolute. If you do not love, you don't know God.
Right.
There is no except in these circumstances,
no.
or unless you've had this baptism, or you go to that church,
or you're brought up
you,
this way, or you're...
yeah, or or you were hurt, or you were right. No, there is no caveat there.
Right.
It's not if you don't know love, but it's because you were, your mom hugged you too much or not enough, right? Like there is there's no caveat there.
Right.
It's if you don't know love, you don't know God.
And that's when we talked last time.
That's tough.
I know, and when we talked last time, remember, and and when Carrie's unconditional love towards me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was loving
Right.
in the manner that I was taught, that I saw, that wasn't love whatsoever. That's how I was loving Carrie until I experienced a true love, which was from God, was what caused me to actually change in my heart, was the reality of when she's sacrificing to love me when I didn't need to be loved at all, something radically shifts. Now I know what God's love is.
Right.
Now I can operate from that. So there's a lot of people out there right now that don't know God, that think they're loving people or loving their wives or loving their spouse. No, they're doing it from what they've been taught or learned, which sometimes isn't bad.
Right. Yeah.
It isn't, but it's not from the foundation of the one who loves us the most, the one who knows us best, which is God. And that's where
you're missing.
you're
I
missing.
mean, you're missing a big part there,
Oh,
right?
huge
I mean, it's in the end, it's why there's this constant search, right?
Yeah.
Like for guys, a lot of
That's
times
so
for
good.
guys, it's searching validation, right? And it's this constant search for validation. Why? Because you're searching in the wrong place.
Right.
Like you're never going to find the validation you need in women, booze,
business.
businesses, busyness,
Occupation.
right? I mean, you're never going to find
No.
the validation you need. You'll find it for periods of time,
Yeah.
which I lived this for years,
Yeah.
right? You find it for periods of time, and then it wanes, and you go, what's wrong with me? Well, it's this job. It's this boss.
That's
I'm
good.
just, I'm not, it's just, this boss is, they're just not good. They don't have a good vision. They don't have a good purpose. This job isn't paying me enough.
Yeah.
I'm not growing in this. There's no future in this for me. I got to find a different one. Then it's, oh my gosh, I found the perfect job. This is amazing. Now I'm finally validated by this. This is great. And then 3 years later, you're going,
I wish I had
this
another
boss. There's no purpose. And, right?
Right.
And the amazing thing is when we're in the middle of it, we don't go, man, I feel like I've said this before. I feel like I've felt this.
I think I've been here before.
Have I done this before?
I mean,
you don't.
Think about just about the many relationships that people go through.
Right.
Oh, she isn't the one. And then you date another one. And, well, she isn't the one. Why? Because you date the same person every single time, the majority of the time.
Because you're the same person.
Right, because you're the same person.
The common denominator in all of those is you, right? I mean, in the end.
Right. Which I'm going to do in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to do an actual dating, blog or dating podcast here. Just so people know that. But yeah, it's because why? Because love, that type of focus that you're talking about, is constantly focused on me and what I'm getting, because that's why I can blame. Because it can't be my fault. It's got to be my boss.
I had a boss one time, a sales manager way back in the day. And he said to us when he was doing some training, I don't even remember how this applied to work now that I think about it, but he said, listen, if you're out in the world and you're interacting with people and everyone else is an a-hole, the a-hole is probably you. Is what he said, right? Yeah. I've remembered that. I think that was in the early 2000s, right? Yeah. Is when I had this guy as a boss. Yeah. Bill, he was an amazing manager. And I remember it still. To this day, I remember that. When I start to think, man, everybody here is just an a-hole. I go, man, crap, I'm the a-hole. Right?
Well, the Bible actually calls them factions.
Okay.
And a faction is when everybody else is wrong except those in your own little group.
Right.
That's what a faction is. When everybody else is wrong, but you and your 4 friends know it all. We're right. That's right. That's what that is, which is obviously something that, it's in Corinthians, and what are the things that what does sin produce? Right. And that's faction, evil factions. It actually says in some translations.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But yeah, so that's what it is. That's why it's outside of, or like I say, does not love, does not know God. It's because all that you have on your mind is you.
Okay. So that, like I said, that verse is just,
tough.
It's a tough one. It is, and it's I feel like there's some places in the Bible where it's it's very specific, and we almost want to just blow past it because it's hard. Yeah. It's hard, and we don't want to think of God in absolutes sometimes, because we need a way out a lot of times. We need unless you had a rough childhood, right?
Yeah.
That's my backstory is, he had a rough childhood, so a lot of these things can be excused. It's not an excuse for me to be an a-hole.
Right, no.
And that is where, we could blow up a whole lot of, we go in the self-help section of any bookstore
right.
and just start grenading good Christian, theologically sound authors who have these theories that are not based off of that.
No.
Right? And that's, this is going a whole different direction at this point, but it's interesting to me because I see it a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. I just started reading a book, and I'm not going to get into that yet because I'm not sure on it, but that's this is why we keep saying, this stuff keeps coming up. I've had the book for a year and a half. I just started reading it this morning, and I get this feeling inside of me I don't know, man. This feels like it doesn't have love. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't have love, it doesn't have God. And I don't know that I'm ready to, I don't know. I think I might have to pause on that one. And and maybe there's more, coming out of it. Maybe there's more to it. I don't know. But, when I start to feel that way, I immediately go, okay, I'm going to shelf this bad boy because
that's a good practice.
It's dangerous.
Oh, yeah. Very good practice. So.
Because that's not renewing my mind.
No.
It's putting that other side of it into my mind,
Right.
which then you're going to find those things always, right? White car theory. If I start to think now every car is white, you start to not see the red ones or the black ones or the gray.
Oh, when I got my red Focus, all I saw was red cars.
Even though there's not.
It's like the old saying, "Don't think of an elephant."
Right. Think about a gray elephant right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Don't think about a gray elephant right now. Everyone else thinking about a
Your
gray
gray
elephant.
elephant comes to your brain. Right, exactly. You know, so yeah, I mean, and then, so we talked a little bit about God is love, and then 1 John 4:16 says, "We know how much God loves us,
Yeah.
and we have put our trust in His love." We talked a little bit about that. God is love, and all who live in love live in God, and God lives in them.
So it's back to it, right? All who live in God,
Live
or
in
all who
love,
live in God live in love,
and God lives in them.
and God lives in them. Like that, again, that is this is how it works.
Yeah.
Which there are some things in the Bible, and I love this part of it because this is where I'm always, you know me, I'm always asking you, like, but how do I do this, right? Like, I don't care about the flowery language and all this stuff. It's great, cool, Psalms are wonderful, right? But how does this work? This is one of those verses where it's like, okay, here's how it works, bud.
Here's how it is, right?
But it's
very
hard,
clear,
right? Yeah.
Very clear. And I mean, the thing that's interesting is we can say it's hard, or at the same time we can get excited. Why? Because when I step out at being kind to the grumpy waitress at Cub Foods.
So is that love?
Yes.
Being kind to the waitress at
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And see, that's what we can be excited about. Because when I operate out of love towards a person, I know that that's God operating.
Right.
So think about that for a moment. God knows the person I'm operating to.
Right.
And now I choose to love this person who's grumpy to me. I put God into operation into their life, and they don't even know it.
Right. Right.
How cool is that? I mean, how cool is that? You walk away and you don't know what that did.
Right.
That smile, that act of kindness. You have no idea the effect that person's going to have when you walk away, but God does. And so if I'm operating out of love, that means I'm operating in God, and God's operating in me, out of me. Something powerful is going to happen.
It has the opportunity to, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, it's God working, and when God's working, then obviously there's opportunity for all sorts of things.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So really,
And God knows them best.
Right.
So
Right.
even
What they
though
need.
who knows that? See, this is where I get excited because that act of kindness towards that person when I didn't have to be kind could have been God's plan all along for that person that day, and He used me at that point.
Right.
That's why I always say, when you're searching for God's will, you're God's will wherever you're at. Think about that for a minute. You don't just go to Cub Food to pick up
Because
toilet
it's
paper.
insignificant.
It's insignificant. You're actually, that's by design. So if it's by design, is it an accident that I have a grumpy cash register lady?
Right.
Probably not. I challenge everyone that's watching that
crazy
the
if you
next
think
time
about
you
that.
go somewhere,
Yeah.
the next time you go somewhere, on your way there, go, okay, God, what is your plan for this trip of what I'm doing? Whether it's getting together with family, whether it's going to the gas station, whether it's going to the store. Okay, God, if this is on purpose and this is part of the plan you have for me is to go to this Target store today, help me to see what you're doing.
Do something. Yeah, help me to see something here happen. Right.
Your attitude's going to be different. You may have you may be totally pissed off at your neighbor for dog pooping in your yard, and you go into Target to get a pooper scooper, right? But if you go in there like my stupid neighbor, I can't stand it, I want to kill that dog. Not great, do that. Or you can go in there going, okay, God, what if this isn't about me or my neighbor
Or the pooper scooper.
or the pooper
right,
scooper?
yeah. Think about I gotta start doing this too. Thinking about the muster retreat that you went to, where people were like, "God, is there something here that you have for me?" I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like every time I go to a store, and I've been meaning to, but I haven't. On it, if I'm gonna be honest. So, yeah, taking it even to that level, where it's like, is there something else here? Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So
To kind of bring it back is, we were talking about that God is love, and
Loop
that
this
God
one around, Pax.
operates. And then, so if God is love, then what is love?
Right. Yeah, that was kind of a question that we posed last week a little bit, and we kind of touched on a little bit, but we missed a pretty big portion.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say we missed. We covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
but there's more.
Right. So if God is love, then our first question is, okay, God, well, what does love look like?
Right.
Well, then
Which you said, love is kindness. One of the things you said.
But so you go to 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8, because once again, this is black and white. Right. It's not saying it might be. It's saying it says love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast.
let's like.
It is not proud.
I think we need to take this. You slow down there, sir. You're flying through big words.
Right.
I mean, these are not. We could say that, right? It's patience.
Because I want to read through
Okay,
this,
go ahead. I'll let you read
and
through
then we're going to go back.
Okay, all right.
But love is patient.
Every time you say these words, I'm like, oh my gosh, do you realize what that says?
Right. Does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres.
Gosh.
Love never fails. Right? Love never fails. And you're right. When you read those, those are some pretty hefty.
Well, I always say to my kids, right? Like, I don't, and I do this, right? So this is something that I say, but I'm not good at yet. Is I don't like to use the words always and never.
Yeah.
Because when I do, I'm rarely correct.
Right.
When I say, hey, you always do this, I'm rarely correct because they don't always. You always leave the toilet seat up. They don't always. So at some point, they can go, no. Right. Last Tuesday,
I didn't.
I put it down.
So that ends that.
And so, therefore, you are wrong in the entirety of what you just said.
Right.
Even though it could be the only day of the whole year that they put the toilet seat down. Right. They did it once, and so now everything that I've said is gone.
Right.
Never is another one. I never do this. Yes, you did. 3 years ago, on this day, you did that, so now everything that you said is not valid.
It's not true.
Because you said all, so this verse uses always and never.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so the one way that you can take this verse that if God is love and love is God, then this is how God operates towards us.
Right. And always this is how we've been instructed to operate towards others. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Right. Always hopes. He's always persevering towards us. So that's one way you can look at this. This is how God approaches the human race, all the time.
Right.
Right. But love is patient. What does that mean?
This is also how when we say, hey, we're to love others. Like this is a steep. It's easy to say that because I think most of us go, oh yeah, it's having this feeling of love and being loving in a general sense. Right? I'm a loving person.
Right.
I'm a good person. Right? How many people do you have here? Like Jeffrey Dahmer's like, no, I'm a good person. You're like, you eat people, dude. You're not a good person. Right? Like, but he probably thinks in some ways he's a good person, right? Or thought.
And what he's doing is right.
Right. So this is absolutes. Like but this is how you really should be judging yourself.
Right.
And the word love.
Right.
Patience. Right? Or sorry, go ahead. Now I'm done.
So let's break these words down.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Because we kind of need to know what these mean.
Because love is patient. So basically what that's saying is love suffers long. Having patience with imperfect people. I mean,
right?
What does that mean? That means that I am going to be patient with those that are imperfect towards me. That I'm going to suffer.
That you have to suffer.
I'm going to suffer because I want to go 75 miles per hour behind the person that's doing 25 because there's a little snow on the ground.
Right.
Minnesotans, you should know how to drive in winter. Right? But I've got to be patient because it may be an old lady that can't see very well.
Or a person might just not want to drive that fast.
And a person may not drive that fast. So I am
suffering
doing 40 when I want to be doing 80. Right? That's basically being patient. It's suffering. Long suffering.
If you have to suffer in patience with someone, that's not a negative thing.
No.
But what about the school of thought that if someone is hurting you, then that person, that's not love. That person needs to go.
Okay.
You got to cut them out and move on with life.
Not according to this, because it says having patience with imperfect people. Which, by the way, I'm imperfect.
Right.
So that means I should be able to have patience with myself.
Yourself. Right.
Right.
Which is probably the hardest one
Oh,
for
yeah.
a lot of people.
Right.
Okay.
So I mean, so that's love is suffers long. So when you think about being patient for somebody, it's going to take suffering. It just is, right? And then I love this. Love is kind.
Right.
Okay. Well, being kind. What is that? Active in doing good. You're consistently active in doing good.
So yeah, again, that word active makes it a whole new meaning, right? Like not only am I just kind, but I have to actually actively be kind.
Actively be kind.
I have to be looking for ways to express kindness.
Right.
Gosh, that's just, I mean, it puts a whole new meaning on the word. Again.
So, active in doing good. Then this one is crazy. Love does not envy.
Yeah, envy is a word that I think we all have a definition in our mind, right? Like envy would be like I want something that you have almost, or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
my neighbor just bought a new truck, and I'm going, crap, I wish I had a new truck.
Yeah. Exactly what you see all the time. Someone gets a new lawnmower, the next neighbor gets a new lawnmower.
Right,
and I've
yeah.
been in communities like that.
Unless you live in my neighborhood.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Then you steal the lawnmower. No, but,
No, I just don't.
No.
I just don't care.
but so what's that break down to? Since it is, since love is non-possessive and non-competitive, it actually wants other people to get ahead.
Right. So you should be happy about that. Like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh,
God.
look at that guy got a new truck. That's cool for them.
Right, exactly. That's why Paul says. That's why Paul says. You said like in the Ten Commandments, like you said, do not covet.
Right.
He's like this Bible actually says. He says that slew me. In other words, you don't want me to want what other people have. I can't covet.
Right.
Oh my gosh! All the rest of them, do not kill, do not steal. I can handle that, but whoa!
Right.
Don't envy. Don't want what others have because I don't have them, and then start to think bad about them because they got something that I don't have. Yeah. Non-possessive and not that actually wants other people to get ahead. Hence, it does not parade itself. It's not about me.
Right.
You know, though some people do get in that truck and look at everybody else and go, "Yeah, I bet you wish you had this."
Right.
Right?
Right.
But you don't. I do. Oh mine. It's a big house.
So yeah, again, it's not wrong to have the new truck.
Right.
It's just, again, you can be okay working hard and having
Yes.
a payoff for the hard work that you have. It's again, hey, I got a new truck. I want you to have one too.
Right.
Oh, you like this? Let me show it to you. Let me explain to you how I got it. Maybe I can help you do your budget.
Yeah.
Show you how I got to this point to be able to afford this, right? I mean, there is a way. It's not like the old, you have to live in rags and
No.
give away all your possessions.
Right.
That's not what that means. It's the mindset, and it's not even stuff as much as the way that you approach other people. Again, the idea of that we're talking about love, and so this is the idea of the way that you interact with other people.
Yeah.
Like, I am not going to try to put myself above you.
Right.
I am going to try to. I want you to be above me, actually.
Yeah. I got for instance, I got the new truck. I actually got a new truck years ago.
Mhm.
You probably remember the GMC I bought years ago.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Brand new, right? My neighbor across the street needed to move a pull-out couch bed,
Mhm.
right? Brand new. This is 3 days old, right? Of course, I offered it to him when he saw that. Hey, you got a new truck. I said, well, if you ever need it for anything, you ever need something moved or whatever, I'd love to help out, or I can definitely borrow it to you. Okay, I want others to get ahead. So he came up to me and he says, actually, I need to have this pull-out couch moved. I'm like, sweet, let's do it. He goes, I'm just bringing it over to his grandparents' house or something like that. I can't remember, which was like 10 miles down the road or whatever. So we lifted this 800-pound couch. I don't know if you ever picked up a pull-out couch.
So they're made out of concrete.
Oh my gosh, they're heavy. And so we get it up into the bed and he pushes it, and what do you hear?
Oh, yeah.
And in me, I'm like, no way. And I didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. Brought it to this place, unloaded it, and it was like a 3-foot long gouge out of my freshly painted, brand new black GMC pickup truck. Yeah. I don't know why I brought that story up, because all I brought was hatred to my mind. But all I saw in that
Still
truck
got
from that
over
day
it
forward was a
that
scratch.
Right.
You know, which constantly reminded me of the thing that I tried to be nice to and ended up wrecking my truck supposedly. But still,
But did it? I mean, how
No,
well
it
did
didn't.
that truck perform as a truck
For
with the
many
scratch?
years.
Right?
Right,
I mean, in the
exactly.
end, I used to get a new vehicle every few years.
Yeah.
Same thing, because it was like, well, I need a new one
Right.
because this one's got. Now it's the exact opposite. Now I'm like, I wonder how long I could keep this one going.
Right.
Like now it's almost like a. I kind of want to I just kind of want to see how far I can take
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Right? And my truck's not old. It's not. There's nothing wrong with my
I'm
truck.
trying to break the 300,000 mark.
But
so.
yeah, I mean, I'm like, I think it would be now. I think it would be cool to do that
Yeah.
because I don't place value in it.
Right.
It still performs fine as a truck.
Right.
So why do I care what it looks like?
And like I say, if you want if you get a brand new truck,
Nothing wrong with that.
when you get a brand new truck, it's non-possessive and non-competitive, and you actually want other people to get ahead. So do you offer it up to people? If someone needed to move something, would you give them that truck to move something? You know, and that type of thing. I mean, instead of saying, "Well, I got a truck, too bad, so sad."
I do this
buy one
at
yourself.
work. Like I constantly, I have people. So I have a pretty big team at my work of people that work under me, and they're often leaving to go to other teams within our company. And I get my boss is always like, "Hey, how do we keep people on this team?" And I'm like, I don't want them to be. Like I want them to be if they want to be here, but if I can train up people that then move on to bigger and better things
Yeah.
for them, that's a win for me. You know, and for my boss, he's like, no, it's not, because then we have to start over, we have to hire new people, we have to train them again. It's this, it costs more money, it's this whole process. And I'm like, yeah, but for them as a person,
Right.
it's a good thing.
Right.
And so that's actually one of my missions so I just decided to make it a goal and a mission for my team, because then when he says, well, you know, this costs more money, I say, yeah, but it's one of our goals.
Yeah.
And so I'm just accomplishing our goals.
Right.
And he's like, well, okay. so I've turned it around to become something that's a positive, you know,
Right.
in the whole
wanting other
scheme.
people to get ahead.
Right.
Right.
Because that's the point.
I mean, a great example is if you're working for a company for 5 years, and somebody comes and is brand new there. They've been working there for a year, and all of a sudden the promotion comes to a new department or whatever, and that person gets it and you don't.
Right.
Are you going to be happy?
Right. And
Are you going to be happy with the fact
can
that
you be?
this other person, you're more happy that someone else? Obviously, you're going to have the feelings and emotions of you wish you had that.
Right.
I'm not saying you can ignore that, but can you get your heart? Is it operating out of the love of God, which would say,
And
"Good for you. I'm so glad that you got this promotion."
And how do you look at that? To me, the way that again, you have two choices. You're at a crossroads when that comes up as to how you choose to look at it.
Yeah.
I'm upset that this person got this promotion over me, or I wasn't ready for this promotion and I didn't put my best foot forward. And so this is on me.
Yeah.
Like I need to now go after the reasons why I didn't get it. And instead of clomping this person down to put me on top, I need to work harder to get myself to a place where it makes sense for me to get the promotion next time. You have a choice as to which path to take there. And so many people take the I need to clomp on these other people to get ahead path, and that's destructive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you may get the promotion next time, but personally, you didn't make yourself better to get there. Personally, you made yourself worse to get there.
And we can talk about this for a long time because, I mean, the attitude of, I deserve it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
The attitude of, and when people come up to me and say, I want to be a pastor, or when people come up to me and they're struggling at their job, and they're wanting that promotion or whatever the case may be, my first thing to say to them is, are you acting and doing what deserves a promotion?
Right.